Chapter 5 Home, Sweet Home. The rat and the mole were returning to the riverbank one day after a long outing with Otter. The shades of the short winter day were closing in on them. On either side of the road they could smell the friendly fields through the darkness. They still had some distance to go till the rattle of the door latch, the sudden firelight, and the sight of familiar things would greet them. They plodded silently. The mole was thinking about supper. The rat was walking a little way ahead, his eyes fixed on the road in front. He did not notice poor Mole when the silent voice suddenly reached Mole and shook him like an electric shock. His nose searched hither and thither. Home! He smelled it. Since his escape on that bright morning when he'd given up spring cleaning and had gone to live on the river with Rat, he had hardly given his home a thought. Now, with a rush of old memories, how clearly it stood up before him in the darkness. "Ratty!" Mole called, full of joyful excitement. "Hold on! I want you, quick!" "Oh, come along, Mole," replied the rat cheerfully, still plodding along. "Please stop, Ratty," pleaded the poor mole. "You don't understand. It's my old home. I've just come across the smell of it. I must go to it." The rat was by this time very far ahead, too far to clearly hear what the mole was calling. "We mustn't stop now," he called back. "The snow's coming on again." "I need your nose, Mole, so come quick." Poor Mole stood alone in the road, his heart torn into pieces. But never for a moment did he dream of abandoning his friend. With an effort, he caught up to the rat, who began chattering cheerfully, never noticing the mole's silence. At last, however, the rat stopped and said kindly, "Mole, you seem dead tired. No talk left in you, and your feet dragging like lead. We'll sit down here for a minute and rest. The snow has held off so far." The mole dropped hopelessly on a tree stump and tried to control himself, fighting off a sob. But poor Mole finally gave up the struggle and cried. The rat did not dare to speak for a while. At last he said, "What is it, old fellow?" Poor Mole found it difficult to get any words out. "I know it's a dingy little place, not like your cozy home or Toad's beautiful hall or Badger's great house, but it was my own little home, and I went away and forgot about it, and then I smelt it, and you wouldn't listen, and—" The rat sat and stared straight ahead, saying nothing. After Mole's sobbing grew quieter, the rat rose from his seat and set off up the road. "Wherever are you going?" cried the tearful Mole. "You're going the wrong way." "Follow me. Think of Riverbank and your supper." "Hang Riverbank and supper too," said the rat heartily. "Let's find your home." They moved on in silence till suddenly Mole stood still for a moment and then began to run. The rat, much excited, kept close to his heels. The mole scrambled through a hedge and with no warning dived into a tunnel. The rat promptly followed him. It seemed a long time to Rat before the passage ended and he could stand up straight. The mole lit a hanging lamp. By its light, the rat saw that they were standing in an open space, neatly swept and sanded underfoot. Directly facing them was Mole's little front door with Mole End painted over the doorbell. Mole's face beamed with excitement and he hurried Rat through the door, into the lonely, empty, neglected house. Mole's face dropped. "Oh, Ratty," he cried, "why did I bring you to this poor, cold little place, when you might have been at Riverbank toasting your toes with all your own nice things about you?" The rat paid no heed to Mole's self-pity. "What an excellent little house this is," he called out cheerily. "We'll make a jolly night of it. I'll fetch the wood, and you get a dust cloth and try and smarten things up a bit." Mole dusted while the rat, running to and fro, soon had a blaze roaring up the chimney. Mole promptly had another fit of the blues. "Rat," he moaned, "how about your supper? I've nothing to give you, not a crumb." "I saw a sardine tin opener," said the rat. "Everybody knows that means there are sardines about somewhere." Soon Rat had found a tin of sardines and a box of crackers. "There's a banquet for you," observed the rat. Before the rat could open the sardines, they heard sounds coming from the courtyard outside. "What's up?" inquired the rat. "I think it must be the field mice," replied the mole with a touch of pride. "They go about carol singing at this time of the year, and they never pass me over. I used to give them hot drinks and supper too sometimes when I could afford it." "Let's have a look at them," cried the rat. It was a pretty sight, and a festive one, that met their eyes. In the courtyard, lit by the dim rays of a lantern, 8 little field mice stood in a semicircle, with red woolen scarves round their throats, their forepaws thrust deep into their pockets, their feet jigging for warmth. As the door opened, one of the elder ones was just saying, "Now then, 1, 2, 3," and then their shrill little voices rose up into the air. "Here we stand in the cold and the sleet, blowing fingers and stamping feet, come from far away you to greet, you by the fire and we in the street, bidding you joy in the morning. Goodman Joseph toiled through the snow, saw the star o'er a stable low, Mary she might not further go, welcome roof and straw below, joy was hers in the morning." And then they heard the angels tell, who were the first to cry Noel. Animals all as it befell, in the stable where they did dwell, joy shall be theirs in the morning. "Very well sung," cried the rat heartily. "And now come along in, all of you, and have something hot." "We've nothing to give them," cried Mole in despair, "only sardines." "You leave that to me," said the masterful rat. "You with the lantern, I want to talk to you." There was whispering, the field mouse was given money and a basket, and off he hurried. The rest of the field mice, perched in a row on a comfy bench with their small legs swinging, enjoyed the fire. They toasted their frozen toes till they tingled. It did not take long for Rat to prepare warm spiced tea. Soon every field mouse was sipping, for a little spiced tea goes a long way, and laughing and forgetting he had ever been cold in all his life. Time passed quickly, and all at once the latch clicked. The door opened, and the field mouse with the lantern came in, staggering under the weight of his basket. In a very few minutes supper was ready. Mole took the head place and looked at the table now overflowing with food. He saw his little friends' faces brighten and beam as they began eating. He thought what a happy homecoming this had become. The rat said little, only taking care that each guest had what he wanted, and plenty of it. That night the weary mole was glad to turn in, but before he closed his eyes he let them wander round his old room. He saw how plain and simple it all was, but also how much it all meant. He did not want to abandon the new life. The upper world was all too strong. It called to him, but it was good to think he had this to come back to, this place that was all his own. These things that could always be counted upon for the same simple welcome. The river was his adventure. This was home.